Hi, good afternoon. So I'm the CEO of a company called Unify. We basically make plastic and glass surfaces of any shape smart. Smart as a point of reference being the interactions you have with touchscreens. We do it in a way which is quite unique. I would say that, but it's true. And I really do believe that we are going to be phenomenally successful. But as was commented on before, it's something that requires a partnership to really take off. I'm also a part-time chair of another amazing company called CodePlay, who's the world-leading supplier of open source-based AI tools. And I'm the very occasional advisor from time to time to investors and CEOs. So I have the opportunity of touching on this topic from a number of different points of views. Right now, the topic of startups is very dear to me because I'm going through a sequence of fundraisers, so I've got a vested interest in getting some good answers out of this. So really, thank you very much for your time.
We could ask Sean, Francesco and Neil to come and join us up on stage. And Leith is going to join us, obviously, virtually, because he's still in Germany. So hopefully we can open up the video for Leith as well, please. Sean? Neil? Good to see you.
You gonna be all right on your own over there?
Oh yeah, you left me in the corner.
You feel lonely over there?
Yeah,
come on.
Guys, we've only got 20 minutes.
Shall I just please pass on this?
Yes.
All right.
COVID, man, COVID! What the hell?
The party had started.
All right. Okay, thank you. So I think I'm going to make this quite easy because from each of your perspectives in turn, I'd like to understand what you think the greatest challenge is faced by startups, and from your respective point of views, how you go about addressing this. I'd actually like to start with Leith first, because I'm just worried that there might be a network issue. Leith, did you hear me?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I'd be happy to. Thank you very much. I do wish I was sitting in that chair, though, I must say. And congratulations to the Techworks team. I think it's great summit. Really very nice, very nicely done. So I did hear your question indeed, and it's a great pleasure to be in the panel. I think, at least to my perspective, I was not aware of startup challenges. I think there are many startups. It's not short of startups, let's put it that way. It's more of a scale-up. It's how do we really take them to the next level, to grow them and to support them financially and also infrastructurally so that they can grow and move to the next level. We have done, from semi-globally, but also semi-Europe specifically, we introduced, the startups. We bring investors together during our platforms across Europe. We have done that with largely during our industry strategy symposium in every March, and also during our Semicon in Europe in November. And I said the impression is that I think there is not a shortage of startups. There's a lot of startups. Just how we really make best use of that to support them, to grow them, and to I said it's more of a scale up to my perception.
Appreciate it. So who would like to go first here?
Are you all looking at me?
Yeah.
So, startups. It's a thing that's very close to my heart. As you know, I've just launched Silicon Catalyst in the UK. It's a semiconductor startup accelerator. It's been going for about 7 years now, and we have accelerated 73 semiconductor startups around the world. We launched it in the UK June 1st, the glorious 1st of June. We've got 2 fabulous semiconductor startups in the UK, and tremendous innovation, tremendous opportunity here. So what's hard about startups? What are the challenges? Well, starting is hard enough, right? Just getting going, that forming storming, norming, and then performing is incredible challenge as a startup. And it's that performing part, right? That's the key. As Malcolm rightly said, you know, most startups get the go-to-market part wrong. One of the guys in Silicon Catalyst has this saying that, you know, there's the James Brown School of Marketing, where you have to get them on the one. I feel good. And that's absolutely what you've got to do as a starter. You've got to get everybody's attention, which is not easy. You're a small team of people, right? But you shouldn't doubt that a small team of people can change the world, because it's pretty much the only thing that ever does. So if any of you are thinking about doing semiconductor startups out there, go for it, because you will absolutely love what you do. You're making a difference, and it's a tremendous adrenaline rush. And if you're thinking about it, come and talk to us at Silicon Catalyst. In collaboration with the NMI, we will throw a whole heap of support to make you successful.
Thank you.
Let's talk about, sorry, can I go next? Thank you. It's going right to left. A silicon startup is not necessarily a UK silicon startup. So can we let's talk about a UK silicon startup. And I'm coming from my own perspective of having worked as a supplier of people to literally hundreds of startups over the last 22 years. So two issues. One is ambition, which I think we kind of all know. Maybe we don't know it enough. Somebody at, I think Alan, you were there, at a Bessemer dinner the other night said, he was a VC, he stood up, he said, you know what, in a way the problem in the UK is that when a UK startup puts a pitch in front of you, it says, exit strategy. Exit to a customer for £30 million in 5 years, and everybody sort of claps and goes, oh, isn't that brilliant? He put that in front of a VC, an American VC, and the guy almost laughed him out of the room and said, dude, you know, do not say that to anybody else in America if, you know, because they want you to be ambitious. And if you end up selling for £30 million and everyone's happy, then that's fine. But actually, certainly a VC and an investor needs to see the ambition. And I feel like we're kind of lacking that ambition as an industry, as a whole, as a country, whatever. But we are smaller than the US, and so maybe that, anyway, it's a discussion point. On the skills, specifically on the skills side, and specifically in terms of government, and the fact that I think I've been going to these things for 22 years, we have been waving our flag as an industry for the last 22 years saying, look how important we are, and we've been saying it to each other, and we all agree with each other, and nobody else agrees with us. All of a sudden, people are agreeing with us, okay? And this is our opportunity to actually put into practice all those things we've been saying for 22 years. But on the skills front, we have a major infrastructure problem in two ways. Stu Edmondson at the UKSF is doing his best to get people into our industry, but the curve is flat. Sorry, the line is flat. We as an industry are not doing nearly enough. This is a tiny organization that gets almost no money, and that's our fault. If this was the States, Stu's organization, based on what he does, would have 10 times the resources and the money to be encouraging people to get into our industry. I promise you that. Just because in the States, I think, in other countries, the industry gives back. The other thing is that if I was going to read a list of names to you of all the people who've had interviews this week in IC design companies through us. I suddenly thought, GDPR, maybe not. But let me promise you, 90%, 95% of those names are not John Smith. Mohammed, anyway, a list of Middle Eastern and Indian names, and some Chinese, and about 5%, sort of UK born and bred. That to me is kind of okay, given the other problem I just mentioned. But actually, at the moment, some of the government policies are working very much against startups. And Malcolm, last point, Malcolm said, oh, it's great for, make yourself interesting, Google, Apple. Apple's interesting because they pay a hell of a lot of money. We have a little algorithm. This is human instead of artificial human intelligence. We have a little note on anyone who joins Apple. Call this person in 3.5 years, because in 4 years their shares vest, and in 4 years and 1 day they're going to want to leave Apple. So startups don't have that luxury. So that is a massive challenge that startups are facing.
Thank you, Neil.
Thanks.
Francesco.
Right. So, if I can get this to work.
You can take Neil's.
Or I'm just gonna borrow yours. There we go. Hi everyone, I'm Francesco from Silico Roundabout and Silico Roundabout Ventures. And I guess like all of us here, passionate, actually very surprised to hear to talk about the ambition, so you stole one from me. So I've only got one to say about the issues. I'm gonna talk about, not necessarily semiconductors, but about what we're all passionate here, which is deep tech, in particularly hard tech. I have built this tech community, Silico Roundabout, as an engineer with my co-founder, almost by chance. It's now become these 15,000 members, and we've seen a couple of unicorns, but we've seen that the startups that had the easiest path to get to the unicorn level or around that way are all startups in the likes of fintechs and B2B SaaS that the sort of system understands. And I think that is the biggest challenge, the fact that as of 2019, the last survey that I managed to find, 8% of VCs in the UK ever worked in tech. Think about the chart, the apple pie, and you that little tiny slice of people, and we're not talking about even founders necessarily, right? So we're talking about across the industry. So that's to me a massive challenge, because somebody comes to you with the pre-seed, early seed startup. They're not needing tens of millions just now, but they need that validation and they need that support. And I think if we don't dare more to invest in these people, and by we, I mean all of us. I mean, I'm launching a venture fund right now, so I'm actually putting myself on the line, but to literally to invest in these guys. But it's all about us, It's as long as we turn them away, hardware is too hard, or there is somebody in America that got some funding to do it, we'd better stay away from battery tech, or you're doing something robotics. The Chinese are they're putting so much money, why would we even want to invest in you? Or talking about the exit strategies, you're thinking of going IPO. Are you crazy? No, you gotta sell to Bosch for 20 million. It's we need to start to get this away and actually give money to people, accepting that some of them will fail, because VCs in America have been doing it successfully, to understand that third, actually that 10% that makes it, if it makes it really big, actually pays off for all the failure. But this creates a system where we're incentivizing people to dare, because it's okay to fail, because somebody will make it, and this will then give back, and then even those that failed can try again and then succeed eventually. But if we don't have that environment of daring or actually giving risk capital at the very early stage, startups will always struggle. If they pick a sector like hardware, semiconductors, again, physical computer science fields, they're harder to understand for the typical ex-bankers VC, right? That the UK and Europe is filled with.
I really appreciate the fact that we have this panel. This is not just to say, but because I'm now going to go into being a startup and discuss this. It would be really nice if, similar to the call to action before, there was a collaborative environment where the various parts of the startup ecosystem actually helped the support and nurturing of startups. I actually think that from the different points of views that you're coming at it your key elements in the story, and that's really important. But to talk to one example about the naivety of a startup, by definition, a startup shouldn't excel at everything, okay? So the point is, does that startup get support in order to be more than what they are at any one time? In my case, I'm amazingly fortunate. I've got probably, pound for pound, one of the best boards ever, okay, if I compare to other people. But that just puts me, I'm sure, in less than 1%. And what really needs to happen if you want to have startups really flourishing is to actually create something around them that allows, for example, issues like their low horizon in terms of where they think they can end up being addressed. Because those mentoring and tuning is something that you can't expect a startup to be proficient at. That's why we've got you guys, yeah, and you guys plus other people. That's my story in this part. Sean?
I think you make a really, really good point there, Jim. If you look at the most famous semiconductor startup on the planet, ARM, and you listen to what Simon Seeger said in his keynote, he said collaboration amplifies everything that you do. The reason why ARM was so phenomenally successful is tremendously a huge lot of things, but one of the things that happened right at the beginning, and I was there in the room where it happened. I was the VLSI technology support guy that ran backwards and forwards between Milton Keynes and Swaffenballbeck when the guys were in the turkey barn helping them to design the first ARM cores. And those 12 individuals that started ARM, you know, what happened to create that rocket growth of success was collaboration. Yeah. So they had VLSI technology introducing Apple's need to design something called the Newton, the handheld computer. Apple was a customer of VLSI's. We were looking for a good embedded processor. I designed an embedded processor for Ericsson. It wasn't good enough for Apple. so they, I was going backwards and forwards to the Acorn team, which turned into the ARM team, and their processor was a perfect fit, absolutely perfect. So that's how the initial stuff got off the ground. Now you look at what ARM did incredibly well through its growth, phenomenal growth to its, where it is today. 24 billion pounds of exit to SoftBank and 60 billion plus in discussions with NVIDIA. So that collaboration, what they created in the ARM partner meeting, wasn't for them to go out and project to everybody that came. And they did the James School of Marketing brilliantly well. You turn up in Cambridge, you walk across, walk along the concourse past King's College, you go through St John's Gate under the Souvent me souviens gate, where it says, remember me well in Old French, and you get into this environment where it's just drop dead gloriously beautiful, isn't it? And everybody that came there from around the world to the ARM partner meeting came away from that talking about ARM every year. And what ARM did incredibly well was listen to their partners. They got advice from their partners on what they should do to improve what they did. That's what we do in Silicon Catalyst. We've got 220 executive semiconductor advisors that talk and advise and help every single one of our portfolio customer semiconductor startups. Those team of individuals, those advisors, have built mutual respect and trust up the whole supply chain. They've decades of experience of making decisions that make a difference, quite often making the wrong decisions, but they give the advice about what not to do as well what to do. And that collaboration, that advice, is done pro bono. They don't get paid by us to do it. They do it because they love the industry and they want to see new things thrive and come alive and perform. And it's a wonderful thing to see.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you. Leif, do you have anything you want to say?
May I
Yes.
add a comment to that, please?
Yes, please.
So I think I was listening and writing some notes, and I think this is the speaker just touched upon a very great point. Is there are great success stories, and ARM is perfectly example of that one at global level, not only UK or Europe. And I think the fact, I don't know if there is the platform. So in the US, as we all know, it's in the DNA, investors and VCs and technology and Silicon Valley and so on and so forth. This is nothing new. This has always been there. I feel that this DNA is not of the same caliber across Europe. We tried on many occasions to try and bring, success stories to really launch the investors with the startups. I feel that the infrastructure in Europe could do better, whether there is, a school or, as we just explained, there's 200 executives that are really giving mentorships, best practices. I think if we could use such an opportunity to bring success stories, to coach, to share best examples, what were the key things that they, in their opinion, that were the launch of their success. I think this will be of great value. I don't see much of that, I have to admit, apart from bringing startups and VCs together. I'm not sure if there is such a permanent infrastructure that is beyond, that is facilitates the support that really make it happen and to launch them.
Thank you, Leif. Thank you very much. Thank you. Neil?
There's something about silos. There's something around silos, isn't there, with semiconductors? In that it's, sorry, yeah. There's something about silos and semiconductors in that we've got ASIN. We almost have too many pots to boil. So it's hard for all of us to come together. ASIN, you've got the automotive side, you've got cybersecurity, both of which we could go to the government right now and just say, they both need support, but actually somebody's got to decide. It's sort of off topic to startups, but also kind of relevant because somebody's got to decide where we put that focus, and therefore the startups come through.
Neil, it's not an off topic because I think that if you follow the theme of what's been going on today, if we were to do a startup-related version of what was discussed about semi, and it had this fundamentally non-for-profit aspect, so everyone's got a vested interest in contributing, rather in the way Sean's describing what happens in his business. I think that we don't actually have any form of sort of college or community that takes startups through the different phases. And I actually think that where we are today, as the UK, this is probably the time to actually be a little bit more strategic and coordinated about taking people through the various seed stages, series stages, I think that would help. Once again, in my case, I have a fortune really, which as time goes by and I talk to other startups, I mean, it's really tough out there. I mean, Leif talked about, the scale up, but you can be lucky if you can even start up. And the startup problem is because a lot of startups don't have the people around them, right, to sort of do, for example, what ARM was able to do. Because in fact, the other part that, to touch on what Sean said, is that I know a number of the people that was in that community, because some of them were people that were colleagues of mine years ago. At a certain point in the industry, they kind of had a lot of best-in-class people around them. So it wasn't a normal startup. So very often when people talk about amazing startups, you forget the fact, right, that almost every single one of those startups start off at another level compared to the average. Not because the technology is extraordinary. There are other factors that come into play, but the key thing is if you don't have the right team, you're going nowhere. You're going absolutely nowhere. And what I'm saying is we could do something about making sure the right team is in place.
I think, Sean, you touched about education before, and I think that's important because I'm not from the US, I'm Italian actually, so it's like take the UK, make it 10 times more conservative, and then you get there, Southern Europe is about that. So everything I say, anyway. But for example, my co-founder is from the US, I know lots of people from the US, and everybody that comes and tells me, and we compare educational system, it's all about, in the US, you're almost like pushed to make a business no matter what. It doesn't matter if it's about selling lemons when you are in primary school, or if it's about doing a spin out from universities. And then universities invest in businesses. Whereas here, just this morning, I was exchanging emails with the startups I'm trying to help because they're trying to disentangle themselves from a university. Because I'm not going to name names, but basically fighting on IPs and taking shares and things. So not only pretty much in Europe, but it's not about the UK. In Europe, we don't really get taught about business or being encouraged to cultivate this network. Or we've got, the Reid Hoffman and Peter Thiel going to universities just to meet students. We actually get universities that up until now, some are still in that mindset of freezing innovation in the sense it's my own thing and I'm going to sell it for a few million to Bosch because I've got a partner there. They're not really thinking about creating entrepreneurs. So I think we could start with that, for instance, having the whole educational system being connected with VCs and incubators and accelerators and successful founders, and having the whole system from primary school all the way to universities that creates that mindset, and when it gets there, it actually at least doesn't put barriers, if not facilitating that.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Anyway, thank you all very much for your time, my esteemed speakers and myself. Thank you all.
Thank you.